Uh, we will go through introduction 3 of our computer networks. Okay, in introduction 1 and 2, we saw the pure fundamentals involved with computer networks, like definition of network from the nuts and bolt point of view, and service distribution services extended to distributed applications view. And we went ahead to discuss about the protocols, their need, and application programming interfaces, etc., etc. Now in this presentation we will go a little deeper into the computer network. In order to see a computer network in its spread and in its enormity, we should assume that we are sitting in a helicopter and looking down. Okay, of course this is an hypothetical situation, and if you do that entire network spread over the globe, we'll see with two distinct separations. One, you will find the edge. One is the edge. You will see edge of a computer network, and you will also see core of a network. Or when we go deeper into the network, there is a conceptual presentation of this network. Network will be seen in the form of an edge, and it is seen in the form of a core. What is there in the edge? If we put up this question, okay, we will find only the end systems are hosts. Okay, hosts or end systems are located on the edges. If at all the hosts and end systems are there serving the entire network, becoming part and parcel of the network, where are they located? For this question the answer is an emphatic the answer is very emphatic, and it is at the edge. They are located only at the edges. Of course, by end systems, it could be computers, it could be PDAs, it could be cell phones and other devices that we use on a daily basis. Okay, that is the thing, and they are called as hosts because they host distributed applications, and the end systems may serve as a client or a server. They have two roles to play. Of course, only one end system cannot play this dual role. One of the end systems must be client, other end system should be host. But anyway, whether it is a client or whether it is a server, it is very important to note that it is host is always equal to end system, and they can be used interchangeably. It can be a host or it can be an end system. Okay, it could be a client or it could be a server, I repeat. Okay, the clients could be PCs, mobile PCs, PDAs, etc. Okay, a client will always run what is called as a client program. Okay, client program running on one end system, okay, will be on a requesting mode. It requests some services from the server program, and server program will yield and will provide whatever the services that are demanded by, okay, the client. Okay, some of the examples that we can offer for the clients are the client server model, or the web, the email, the file transfer, the remote login, the news groups, and many other popular applications run on client server model. Okay, it's a architecture that comes to distribution systems. Okay, we will discuss at the later point of time, but anyway, please be understanding. You should understand, the listener should understand that the end systems could play a role of a client or could play the role of a server. Okay, these end systems are of course connected by once again by the communication lines or channels or whatever. Okay, and all the end systems are collectively called as peers. Okay, they are exchanging messages, they will be exchanging files, okay, on day-to-day basis. Okay, on day-to-day basis, and every minute they will be exchanging, okay, the files or information or whatsoever, right? uh, how do they access? Okay, how do these so-called end systems will access? Okay, there are many methodologies. Okay, we will go one by one. Okay, it could be dial-up modem. Okay, it could be through dial-up modem. Back in 1990s, of course, almost all residential users access the internet over an ordinary analog phone system. Okay, it's over there, it's in a home system. Here is a router and there are systems over here. Okay, there is a modem. Okay, there is a modem, dial-up modem it is called as. The term dial-up is employed because the user software actually dials an ISP phone number. Okay, it dials an ISP phone number and makes a traditional phone connection with the ISP, that is internet service provider. The PC is attached to the PC is attached to a modem. You must have seen this. Of course, it was there only in the earlier times. It is no more there. It has become obsolete. Okay, because dial-up internet access has major disadvantages or drawbacks. First and the foremost, it is excruciatingly slow. It's very slow. Okay, providing a maximum of say 56 kilobits per second. Okay, and that is at 56. In order to give a flavor of this, at a 56 kilobits per hour, it takes approximately 8 minutes to download a single 3-minute MP3 song. Okay, it may take several days, if I say, to download a 1 gigabyte movie. Okay, therefore, as the technology advanced, then came what is called as DSLs, that is digital subscriber lines. Okay, digital subscriber lines are adopted in residential. It comes under residential access only. In most developed countries, more than 50% of the households have broadband access. Okay, a residence typically obtains a DSL, that is digital subscriber internet access, from some company that provides a wired local phone access. Thus, when DSL is used, a customer is also its ISP, that is internet service provider. DSL, okay, anyway, it will be two lines will be there. One will be carrying data and one will be carrying telephone, voice, etc. And in order to convert, in order to exchange this, there is a digital line access. Okay, a digital subscriber line access multiplexer called as DSLAM, typically located in the company's office. Okay, the telephone lines carry simultaneously both data as well as telephone signals. Okay, therefore they will work under different speeds. Okay, they will work under different speeds. A high speed downstream channel in 50 kilohertz to 1 megahertz, and a medium speed upstream channel 4 kilohertz to 50 kilohertz, and exactly an ordinary two-way telephone channel in 0 to 4 kilohertz. Okay, here is the telephone line and there is a router. It will be connected to DSL modem, and DSL modem will go to DSLAM. This will integrate the telephone line voice as well as your data that is being transmitted, and it will be passed to the internet. So this figure explains how exactly the movement of the information and movement of the telephone voice will take place. Okay. The next one could be hybrid fiber coaxial cable. Okay, while DSL and dial-up make use of the existing local telephone infrastructure, this kind of a access will have what is called as cable head-end broadcast television channels. Okay, and this will happen through wires. Okay, or fiber coaxial cables. Okay, here is a hub and here is an optical node, and there are several residential units, and from here the information will go here to optical node, and this information will be flowing through this fiber optic cable. Okay, this is also one of the technical advances. Okay, and the next one is fiber to the home. Fiber optics can offer significantly higher transmission rates than ordinary wires, copper wire or coaxial cable. Okay, some local companies will have recently laid the optical fiber from okay, from the distribution offices, okay, to the homes. Now will provide high speed internet access, high speed, and it will look something like this: high speed internet access, and this is fiber to home. Of course, this is happening. This is the order of the day. Okay. uh, then comes Ethernet access. uh, this is with respect to a corporate or university campus scenario. It is a typical Ethernet, means it is a local area network, okay, involving several lane systems and several routers within a university or within a building or within a campus or within an enterprise. Okay, it's a LAN. There are many types of LANs exist. Okay, this will come with a high speed, okay, 100 Mbps, okay, 100 megabits per second access, whereas it may involve servers as well as okay, clients. Okay, servers will always work with somewhere in the speed range of 1 gigabits per second up to 10 gigabits per second. Okay, Wi-Fi, you know this. Increasingly, people access the internet wirelessly, either through a laptop computer or from a mobile handheld device, okay, such as iPhone, BlackBerry, or Google phone. Okay, in a wireless LAN, wireless users transmit and receive. See, these are all wireless users: PCI adapter, PC card adapter, compact flash, PDAs, print server. Okay, this also doesn't have a wire. Okay, this will directly, if at all this fellow wants to send a message, he will to him he will first of all send it to this access point, and from access point it will go over here. Okay, if this fellow wants to send the message to this internet, it has to go to the access point, and then it has to it should be transferred to this router, and then it will go to the cable modem, and then it will be ported to the public internet. Okay, this is what happens. Okay, wireless. Okay, wireless fidelity. There is wireless. Okay, there is no physical channels seen around over here. Okay, access point will grab whatever the messages that the PC adapter or PC card adapter wants to send. Okay, or a smartphone wants to send. Okay, then wide area wireless access. This could be another access way of accessing the internet, okay, by the end systems. Okay, when we access the internet through a wireless LAN technology, we typically need to be within few 10 meters of the access point. Okay, access point you have seen, okay, in the previous slide. Okay, here if you want to cover a wider area, wireless, okay, wider area, it is a wide area wireless access. Okay, telecommunication companies have made enormous investments in so-called the third generation 3G wireless, which provides, of course, now 4G wireless has come, which provides packet switched wide area wireless internet access with the speeds exceeding even 1 gigabits per second. Okay, today millions of users are using these networks to read and send the mail, to surf the web, and to download music while on the run. Okay, okay, this covers wide area, and wireless access covers wider area, as the name itself would imply. So the wider area will involve a wider edge, and wider edge will also involve too many multitudes of end systems, okay, wanting to connect with the internet. Okay, then comes WiMAX access. As always, it's a killer technology, it is said. Okay, waiting to dethrone, okay, dethrone the standards. WiMAX, okay, it is venturing, okay, it is pervading. Okay, WiMAX, Intel WiMAX 2009, WiMAX Forum 2009. It's also known as IEEE 802.16. Okay, this is a system. This is a system provided. This is an access provided for end systems which are spread over the distances of tens of kilometers. Okay, now with this we will come to the network core. So to summarize, in the network edge we saw several end systems sitting over the hypothetical edge. There is no edge, but there is an edge. Okay, there is no edge physically, but there is an edge. Okay, wherever end systems are found, wherever end systems are located, they should be understood, okay, to be located on the edge, hypothetical edge of the network. So in order to separate the technology, okay, as end systems and core systems, okay, the systems that will pervade in the core, there is a hypothetical titles, hypothetical nomenclatures given as network edge and network core. Okay, in the network core you will find um, all routers, switches, okay, some electronic gadgets which are doing some kind of a relaying the message that is being sent by the end systems. Okay, when the message is sent by the end system, it has to travel across several switches or routers. Okay, in the network core, therefore we find routers and switches. Okay, these are all routers. Okay, node like things, these are all routers, and here are the end systems, and this is called as an edge router. If this fellow wants to send the message, okay, he has to, first of all, the message should be sent to the so-called edge router. Okay, edge router is not in the edge, because this forms the extremity, this forms the extremity of the core. Okay, where exactly the edge routers are located? They are located near to the extremity of the core, but they are in the core, they are in the borders of the core, maybe they are in the borders of the core. Okay, if a message has to go from this end system to this end system, it has to first reach the edge core, edge router, then it has to go inside the core of the network, and then it has to travel like this. It should go to this particular router, and then it has to go to the edge router over here from that end. Okay, this is extreme router. Okay, over this particular end, and then it has to go to the respective receiver. Okay, so internet core is pervaded with, is filled up with the routers and switches. Okay, they switch the message across. Okay, there are, how exactly this message is switched across? Okay, so this is in one corner, this is in the north pole, let us say, this is in the south pole. Okay, let us say this message is to be sent from this fellow to this particular fellow. There is a directionality change. Okay, it has to come like this only. If a message is to be sent, messages are to be sent from this end system to this end system, it has to go something like this. Okay, therefore, and the distance is too much, distance is unimaginable. It can be poles apart, it can be continental distance. Okay, it can be continents apart, but anyway, the distance is huge distance. It may not be as easier as it appears on this particular figure. Okay, distance is really great, really great. And of course, these technologies can be appreciated if and only if you assume two end systems sitting at in a remote place. Okay, with a long distance between them, with a long distance between them. Therefore, this switching offers some kind of a directionality, some kind of a directionality for this movement of the messages. There are two kinds of switching. Okay, you can see circuit switching as well as packet switching. Okay, we will discuss about circuit switching. Okay, when the messages are sent, okay, in a technology called circuit switching, there will be dedicated paths. Okay, okay, there is a system over here called A, there is a system over here D, and if they want to send messages to C and D, okay, they can take up this particular route. Okay, this becomes for him, this is the circuit. For him, there is a circuit. Whenever A sends the messages to C, he will feel as if there is a dedicated path for him. There is a dedicated path. And as far as D starts sending the messages to C, he will also feel, this particular end system will also feel that there is a dedicated path that exists. Okay, therefore this dedicated path is called as switch. Okay, sorry, circuit. This is dedicated path is called as circuit. Okay, there is a dedicated path. Therefore, having several end systems trying to connect several other end systems at the diametrically opposite places, okay, diametrically opposite locations, there can be a number of dedicated paths. Okay, you can, how many dedicated paths? That is your imagination. That is your imagination. But anyway, in circuit switching, there is a concept of dedicated paths. Okay, so when multiple contenders, see here A and D, there may be many trying to use this particular path, let us say. Okay, because there are many contenders, many receivers over here, many senders over here, they want to use the same circuit, then there is a problem arises, a problem will arise when multiple contenders try to use a circuit, okay, to push their messages across the distance, across the distance, across the extremities, okay, they it becomes a resource sharing problem. The resource is a single circuit and sharing is to be done among multiple contenders. Here what is shared is bandwidth is shared, okay, bandwidth of this particular circuit. Bandwidth is defined as the numerical difference between highest frequency and lowest frequency that can be accommodated by this links over this circuit. Okay, it is a numerical difference between the highest frequency and the lowest frequency that is accommodated by this circuit. Okay, to avoid this problem, okay, they may collide, the collisions may occur, there may be some kind of a contest that is being set up, okay, multiple contenders trying to push their messages, their information on a common path may rise to some kind of collision. Therefore, to avoid this problem, to avoid collisions, okay, sharing of the bandwidth among multiple contenders are made. Okay, sharing of the bandwidth has to be shared. Okay, there are two technologies for this sharing of the bandwidth. One is frequency division multiplexing, the other one is time division multiplexing. There are two technologies meant for sharing the bandwidth among the multiple contenders. We will go through frequency division multiplexing. Okay, in frequency division multiplexing, the bandwidth of the circuit, or bandwidth of the link is bifurcated into different capacities. Okay, they are called as channels. Okay, and there are multiple contenders over here trying to use the same channel. Okay, with a higher bandwidth, of course, and data has to flow in this direction. Okay, they will be multiplexed here by a multiplexer, and the data will flow. Multiplexer will just accommodate different kinds of messages or different channels. Okay, you should feel as if a single channel is partitioned into several channels. I repeat, a single channel is partitioned into several channels, and each and every channel blessed with a particular frequency range. And in order not to have intermix of this frequencies, there are guard bands, something like insulators, and they will reach demultiplexer. There it will be divided, and the respective messages will be received by respective receivers. Okay, the frequency is divided here. Frequency is divided. Okay, okay, the huge frequency, which is called as the bandwidth of this particular channel, particular link, or particular circuit, is divided into different channels. Okay, this kind of things are happening in television. You must see, you will hold a remote, and you go on switching stations after station, and there is only one cable coming from behind the television, and you would have watched this. Okay, so suddenly you can change the channels. Okay, it is seen in telephone networks till today. Okay, it is seen in FM radio stations also. It is a merry thing for us to change the stations. Okay, very quickly, maybe, and this frequency ranges between FM radio stations vary between 88 megahertz to 108 megahertz. Therefore, the main channel, the single circuit should be able to accommodate this range of multiple frequencies. Okay, that is the thing. That is the technology, frequency division multiplexing. And the other one is time division multiplexing. Okay, there are many contenders over here. Here, the time of transaction of all these contenders will be divided into frames. Okay, let us say they want to transform for 8 minutes. Okay, and there are 8 people over here. Okay, trying to send their messages over here. Okay, therefore to the other end, therefore every frame will have, there will be 8 frames. Okay, and each and every frame is once again divided into what are called as slots. So if 1 minute is given to one frame, because 8 contenders, 8 frames, and each and every frame is to be further divided into slots, 8 slots. Okay, 8 slots. Therefore, each and every slot will get 1/8 of a minute, 1/8 of a yeah, 1/8 of a minute or 1/8 of a second. Okay, and say, let us say there are 8 contenders. 8 seconds is the transaction. 8 seconds they want to be active, let us say. So therefore there will be 8 frames. Each and every frame is 1 second length here. Okay, the length is 1 second on a time scale, and it is further divided into 8 slots, each slot equal to 1 by 8 second. So this slot time is also called as quanta. So the first fellow will be given this slot, second fellow will be given this slot, and third fellow will be given this slot on a round robin basis. Okay, they will be allotted this particular slots on a round robin basis. And if there is a major disadvantage in time division multiplexing, if one of the contenders becomes idle, when one of the contenders doesn't have any message to be sent across, then he will remain idle, and that particular time will also remain idle. And if this extends for continuous amount of time, okay, and multiple contenders are exhausted with their sending of the data, then there will be many idle times left over. Okay, this is called as silent periods. Okay, during silent periods no message will be transmitted across the circuit. So the other kind of switching that is taking place, the current day internet is working under packet switching. Okay, this is the current technology. Of course, the circuit switching remains still with telephony. Okay, telephone circuits or telephone voice exchange. But here, apart from that, and today there is no technology which uses circuit switching. Okay, so now it is packet switching. The message that this fellow wants to send to this fellow will be bifurcated or divided into small messages, and each message is placed in a hypothetical packet, let us assume, with some control information. Then it becomes a packet. So a huge message is divided into multiple number of packets, and this is shown in black, and this is shown in no, with no fill up. Okay, this because in order to indicate that this is a different kind of message and this is a different kind of message, they will travel over the paths, the links. Okay, intermittently arriving at nodes. Okay, these nodes are routers. Okay, here till here there is a router and there is a link. Routers are there is a link. Okay, they will travel towards their direction. This fellow wants to transmit his messages to this fellow, and this fellow wants to transmit the message to this fellow. You can see how exactly things are moving. And when these packets come to this particular router, okay, they will form the queue near the output port. Okay, each packet passes through several routers during its journey from sender to receiver. Router will store, because multiple packets. Okay, here only 2 contenders are shown, but in reality there can be multiple number of end systems trying to push their push their packets to the multiple receivers on the other end. Okay, they have to pass through the core of the net. That is simply understood. Okay, and so it so happens that a particular router getting different packets sent by different end systems. Okay, they have to be stored. Look here, the black colored packets are coming, the white colored packets are coming, and here there is a directionality change, and the black colored packets have to move in this direction, while the white colored packets have to move in this direction. This color, there is no coloration as such, and this may contain a song, this may contain a PDF file, this may contain a image, and this is the messages. Okay, messages separate. Okay, bifurcated, representing some other kind of, maybe a audio video streaming. Okay, and it has to go in this direction. Look here, and it has to be stored over here. Okay, this is the outbound for this black colored packets, and this is the outbound link for this white colored packets. Therefore, so this particular router will have output ports, okay, and they have the information is to be injected, is to be transmitted to this, okay. This transmission causes a little amount of delay, okay. This transmission means this packet this packet should be fully pumped to this particular outbound link, okay. Fully pumped means the transmission delay is involved. Transmission delay is the time elapsed between the first bit entry to the outbound link to the last bit entry, okay. This is called as transmission delay, and here also transmission delay happens. Due to this transmission delay, packets are stored over here, okay. There is a kind of a buffer provided, and it is shown in this, okay. See here, it is coming over here, and there are several kinds of packets coming over to this particular router, and they have to be stored, okay. So it is so packet switching has store and forward concept, okay. They have to come and they have to stay before the what is that output port, because each and every packet is to be transmitted to the respective outbound link, okay. Packet switching allocates link on demand. If there are number of contenders who would want to push their packets, the link capacity will be shared on packet to packet basis. The sharing happens only among those users who have packets that needs to be transmitted. So this kind of on-demand sharing is termed as statistical multiplexing, unlike frequency division multiplexing, okay, where okay, time division multiplexing, where there are silent periods created. Here the packets are pushed on an output link only on demand, only on demand. So you can notice several differences between packet switching and circuit switching. There is a dedicated path and there is no dedicated path over here, and there may be underutility of the bandwidth there in circuit switching, but here there is no underutility, okay. Effectively the bandwidth of each and every link is effectively utilized, okay. There is a signal which flows in circuit switching. The messages are more or less seen as signals, but here messages are seen as packets, okay. Packets, it causes a delay in case of course there is no there is no delay at all in circuit switching once the message starts flowing in a particular circuit, but here there is a delay introduced because of the store and forward concept, okay. They will be stored and forwarded, therefore there is a delay, okay. There are some questions asked over here, okay. The listeners should try to answer this, okay. Then the listener will have a consolidated idea about the circuit switching and the packet switching and the other things which were discussed in this, okay. In the introduction 3 of computer networks. With